So that's
Right.
one. The other thing is, I heard you mention FBA fees, storage. We also have to have the commission, right? Amazon commission, that's 15%.
Correct.
And then FBA fees is about 15%, roughly.
Correct.
Again, depending
Yep.
on the size. That's why I
Right.
mentioned the size, because if it's small, then obviously you can get away with it. But I usually allow between 12 to 16%. And if
That's,
it's
yep, 100%.
yeah. And so what I usually do in my analysis is I have three buckets in the expenses. One is actually I have four buckets. One is Amazon commission, the other is FBA fees, and then you have storage, and you have everything else.
Yep.
So I tell people that storage and everything else, stay on top of it so that it doesn't go over 5%. So
Yep.
what is your take on that?
Yeah, I think, and it's interesting because when we built Brandable, we purposely built alerts into our system to alert sellers anytime there is a change to FBA storage fees. So one of the things that we do when we onboard folks into Brandable is we have them set up alerts for all of their hero ASINs, that anytime the profitability either dips below a certain EBITDA threshold or is more than 10% outside of the trailing 7-day average, they automatically receive an alert via email and Slack. Same thing for FBA storage fees, right? FBA storage fees are, I think, the sneakiest part of an Amazon P&L. Because Amazon, as you well know, will change fees quite frequently. And sometimes these won't necessarily come out in the wash until 14 or even 30 days later for an operator that isn't super intensely focused on sort of the unit economics of their P&L. So we've tried to kind of automate alerts anytime the sort of, kind of profitability threshold changes. But so, and yeah, like I said, when it comes to, sort of Amazon's general 15%, FBA marketplace fee, that take rate isn't going to really change. Walmart's take rate, Target's take rate, Shopify's kind of marketplace fee isn't going to really change. But storage for Amazon and the costs in a 3PL for a Shopify business are the things that will change significantly. So whether you use a software tool or whether you audit this yourself, this is a number that I kind of urge all sellers to look at on a weekly, if not daily basis. Again, our tech can kind of proactively flag that for you. But if you're kind of just manually running a business out of Seller Central, it's worth the 10 to 15 seconds a day to manually kind of audit the both the just sort of gross storage fees and the percent of the overall revenue that they're taking at both a brand level and for one or two of your hero SKUs if you have a business where just a couple of SKUs comprise the majority of revenue.
Yeah, because these storage fees, you cannot really track those at SKU level, right? So it's the overall storage fee as a percentage of your sale. That's what you're tracking.
Correct. Although in Brandable, you can track storage fees at the SKU level.
But I mean, unless like you have systems and everything else.
Correct. Right. You need systems in place, but the data is available from Amazon via the SP API to track the storage fees at the SKU level. Look, if you run a very, very large catalog where no one product is responsible for more than 20% of sales, it's probably okay to look at it at the aggregate brand level. But if you have any sort of true hero ASINs or SKUs in the portfolio, you tracking at the product level, I think, provides a lot of value. And sort of knowing in real time if those storage fees change is important, because if the storage fees change considerably, you may have to think about raising price. You may have to think about dialing back on a PPC campaign to make sure your tacos don't run to an unprofitable level. And to your point, storage fees, I think, of the sort of P&L line items can feel the most random and unpredictable for operators.
So going down the line, you have your revenue at the top, and then comes your refunds, landed cost, then your Amazon commission, FBA fees, storage, and everything else. And then you're left with the contribution margin, and out of which comes advertising. You know what's not included in this picture? See if you're gonna guess, which is hidden thing people never think about, but they're always ready to go with it.
What you got for me? Chargeback, subscribe and save. Which parts of the P&L?
I mean, those go under
Well, you've
everything
got your
else.
obvious, you got your OpEx, right, for a business, right? We haven't even talked about the OpEx of a business.
This is right at, it comes right off the top.
Between your sales, so between your gross to net bridge and contribution margin, or?
Yeah, it's right at the top. It's actually second level, right after your sales, before refunds. Discounts,
So you factor,
promos.
sorry, I
Promos.
put discounts under, yeah. I was thinking of promo in the, for the purpose of this in the refund line. In Brandable, when we show your P&L, we obviously itemize out promo and refund and return. But I was kind of, for the purpose of simplicity here, aggregating them. But yes, obviously understanding how much of your sales are promotion led is extremely important.
Yeah, because you know, it's if you do this, like we're talking about gross margin.
Yep.
15% is the difference between an acceptable maximum 35 and unacceptable 50. So if you don't really take that into account when you're creating your pricing, then you are going to be bleeding all the way, right? Because it's easy to offer a 15% discount. Everybody is ready to offer 15%.
Right.
And you don't even blink. As yet, it's a big chunk.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing though is in some cases it can be semantic depending on the strategy you're running, right? A 27% product that never goes on sale is the same as a $30 product that is always on sale for 10%. So I think understanding, like, at a certain level, depending on the kind of analysis you're doing, in some cases I think it's wise to almost like isolate promotion as a variable and just worry about, okay, what is the end price that a consumer is ultimately buying my product for, and thinking about sales in that way. If you're trying to kind of like run an analysis on what advertising level can my kind of business have to still be profitable. If you're trying to kind of understand, okay, how reliant am I on promotions to actually move units, then obviously you need to kind of deeply zero in on this line item.
Yeah.
But one of the things, one of the things that we do in Brandable is we run a full basic price and promotion simulator. So we have a tool that essentially allows sellers to simulate the impact of a lightning deal, an evergreen coupon, or a 7-day promo, to try to understand, okay, if I drop the price or if I raise the trailing evergreen ASP, but then run a lightning deal, how likely am I to move additional units? And 8 or 9 times out of 10, what we essentially find is most folks aren't running enough price experiments, right? People are very hesitant to change price because it's, feels like such an existential kind of core part of the business. But the reality is, like, for a fairly mature Amazon or even Shopify business, especially if you're selling third party, one of the only levers you have that is fully under your control is price experimentation. Right? So much of it relies on the whims of the Amazon algorithm or what your competitors might be doing in PPC, but constantly playing with the behavioral economics of price is a variable that that you control. And again, 8 or 9 times out of 10, when folks use our simulator tool, they actually see that, you know what, even if I don't want to necessarily drop my price, maybe I should consider raising my price 15% and then running a lightning deal for 20% to kind of play with some of the psychology and behavioral economics to see if I can sell more units. So I think it's a good call out. The only reason I didn't kind of include it when you kind of did the full sort of breakdown of the P&L is I almost think of promo as almost living above the top line, because ultimately it's just what are you actually selling goods for? And that is really the amount the customer pays at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why I bring it up, because the typical exercise before starting all the operations is, okay, let's decide how much we're going to sell this for. And you make those calculations. And then if you're doing this the right way, you are doing this ahead of time. You're studying the FBA fee. You are adjusting your packaging so that it fits into a tier that will be lower than the next one, and so on and so forth. So you do all this, and in the end, you say, okay, this is going to be our price, and we're going to make this much before advertising. And then you go offer a 15% discount. Everything goes out the window.
Yep. Yep. That makes a ton of sense. And it's funny, you say before advertising, obviously the elephant that we haven't, elephant in the room we haven't spoken about is the advertising line.